Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live on ServiceNow webinar. Topic of the day here is customer access management. I am Krupa Singampalli. I'm an outbound product management director, and I'm joined by my colleague Pratik Gupta from our inbound product management team. And we're going to tell you all about why you should care about customer access management. Before we get started, here is our safe harbor notice. Some of this content may be forward-looking, so make sure you are taking this information as it is. This particular webinar is one of a series of live on ServiceNow webinar topics. So here is a link for you to register for the ongoing series, and we will be sharing the link for this in the chat as well. But I highly encourage you to join us for this series. The next one that we're going to be presenting is very exciting on what's coming up in what's new in Vancouver. We do have some time at the end for Q&A, so you can use the Q&A link here on the button on the top and then ask your questions, and we will share this recording afterwards. And our request to you, you will be sent a survey after this, so any feedback you give us will help us tremendously in this series going forward. Okay, with that, let's jump right into the content. We already know it's going to be me and Pratik who are going to be taking you guys through this journey right here. First, we're going to talk about what are related parties and what is customer access management. And then Pratik's going to do a live demo for us, followed by a Q&A. So let's take a step back, right? Let's talk about customer service and customer service processes. We have your business customers, your B2B customers, your B2C customers, and they have sold products, installed base, so they own products that companies sell, and they have cases where they're requesting help for either their products or other issues they have with respect to your company. And you would think that, okay, customer service, these are the customers, and we have a service agent, and this is where they're interacting with each other. That's the customer service process. But the reality of it is there are many, many more parties involved in relation to this whole process. And that's what we're very originally calling them as related parties. They could be something like your spouses, your family members, your household members, and if you're a consumer. It could even be another account, the contacts of that account, or it may even be a completely third-party business contact. Think your attorneys, repair technicians, people who are interacting with the company on behalf of you as a customer, right? Where they need a level of access, they need a level of involvement in this process. Now, let's actually go through some specific examples to make this more tangible, right? So Kenny here is a consumer, and there are scenarios where he needs others, like these related parties, to update and track and collaborate on his issues. So let's think one scenario on what is a case situation. Now, he is applying for a loan. He needs to add his wife, Susan, as a co-applicant. This means that his wife needs a level of access to the loan where she's providing her own financial information, answering questions, updating. Now, there may be another related party here. Think there is an uncle who is guaranteeing this loan. Now, this particular person doesn't need access to the case, but bank needs to keep this person's information and track these details. Now, let's take another look at if you have certain products, what are the scenarios where you have some related parties involved in the process. Think of a insurance policy as a product. Many times you're adding a trust, which is an account as a beneficiary to the life insurance policy. Again, as a beneficiary, the trust or the trustees don't need an access to the product or the product details, but the company does need to track who are the trustees, what's their contact information. Or take this other very common scenario that all of us encounter, like where you have a family member you're adding to the mobile plan. Now they need full access to the product and the details. So if their device is having issues or there are network outages, things like that, any one of them can raise the issues and follow and track through. Now, this is a consumer, but the same kind of scenarios exist in a B2B perspective as well. Now, the other key consideration from a B2B perspective is the levels of access could be very broad to very granular, depending on the scenario. Like, for example, Buxeo is a account and they purchased an ERP subscription and a CRM subscription. Now you have Jack, who is the ERP architect. So he needs to track all the ERP cases, whether it's submitted by him or submitted by others, so that he can have that full view on where things are. But there may be a procurement department head, Perry, where there's something wrong with the ERP, there's an issue there, so now he can't send any POs. Normally, he wouldn't want to be tracking ERP issues, but he wants to know what's happening with this specific issue because that's affecting his ability to work, right? So these are very common scenarios that we see in different industries on this need of access for related parties. And there are some examples here across multiple industries on technology. In addition to the one that we just saw, there may be scenarios like there is a support contact, or maybe there is a partner that's maintaining different parts of the application, and then you need different contacts for, maybe there's a production server and a dev server and different partners are responsible. Or in a healthcare scenario, maybe there is a medical device that's purchased, but the device administrator needs to know from a risk assessment on when is it up, maintenance, and all those kinds of things. But the reservation department needs to know if there are any outages and things like that, so that they stop scheduling patients for use of this device. And then a B2B, we saw a B2C scenario in banking. In a B2B, you could have something like a conglomerate, an account that owns the bank account, but then there are subsidiaries. So the authorized signatory is a very common use case in a financial world. Government, very common. You have beneficiaries where beneficiaries may not need all information, but governments do need to track all the beneficiary details. There may be certain agencies who are helping these beneficiaries attain those benefits. Higher education, there are trusts or parents who are actually paying the tuition fee, so they are the responsible parties. Cars, appliances, general manufactured goods. Typically, you might have your family member, maybe there is a warranty request, repair request. They are following these. So these scenarios are so very common in so many different industries. But why don't companies or businesses include all these related parties in the customer service process? Why not? Right. Now, there are significant challenges that businesses face when they try to expand this access beyond the primary requester. First of all, the customer relationships, they are very complex. They're hard to model and track. So there is a authorized user. There is someone you just need to capture for information. There is someone who needs full access, someone who needs restricted access. And then these informations may not all be in the same system. Okay, one system is tracking access to cases. Another one has your install base details. So giving this access and tracking these relationships across these systems is really hard for businesses. Now, the second part is, even if you're able to track that, customers, they want a seamless and efficient process. They can't be told, oh, you need this access? Okay, give me 1 week and then we will add you. They want this to be very seamless, very smooth, but the reality is The back office processes here are very complex. They are very involved in authorizing this access. There's some verifications that you need to do, all these kinds of things. Right now, the third part, of course, is, and as we talked about it, in terms of the level of access needed, it could be something broad, like the ERP case we saw, or something very narrow, like a single case. Now, providing these different levels of access control and requires, most of the time, a lot of custom access control logic, which means you're spending a lot of time in maintenance and overhead costs. So this is where the customer access management capabilities in ServiceNow CSM, they let businesses enable these related parties to track cases submitted and products that are purchased and owned here by a primary requester in a low-code configurable manner. So how do we do that? The customer access management capabilities in CSM let you establish specific contacts, specific access for specific cases, products, and services. And there is even a level of, let's say, automatic access based on other entities. Like, for example, you have access to a product, then you have access to the cases related to that product. But this is actually where we talked a lot about what it is. And I'd actually like to turn it over to Pratik to show you how easy and simple it is to achieve this with customer access management in ServiceNow. Pratik, off to you.
All right. Greetings to all, and thank you, Krupa, for setting the context and the need for related parties. Building further, let's try to first understand the key elements that make up and contribute to customer access management, which are related parties, roles, and responsibilities. Let's take an example. Kenny Rogers, a B2C consumer, has a set of cases raised by or for him that he has access to. Similarly, Susan Rogers is another consumer and Kenny's wife who has her own set of cases. Now, Susan requires access to one of Kenny's cases. For example, they apply for a mortgage case so that she can track and contribute to the case. As we touched upon earlier, this access can be achieved through related parties. Now, there are two parts to a relationship through related parties, which we'll discuss. One is a name or a label for the relationship to denote what role the user is playing on the record. And two, the level of access granted through the relationship. The name of the relationship can be provided through related party types. For example, Susan is added as a co-applicant party type to the case. The access further depends on two layers. One, the user having a responsibility on the related party record, assigning the applicable responsibility, for example, the authorized representative responsibility, denotes that the user should get access to the record. On the other hand, not having the responsibility or keeping the responsibility blank means that no access shall be granted. The related party setup for the scenario that we discussed looks something like this. So Susan can be added as a related party to a case on Kenny as a co-applicant party type and with the authorized representative responsibility. The second element for access is the user having the appropriate role assigned to them. As we know, access on the ServiceNow platform is driven by roles. And apart from having the responsibility on the record, the user also needs to have the role that eventually grants access. So a consumer user who is added on a case as an authorized representative would further need a case authorized consumer role assigned to their user. So in a nutshell, a combination of a role on the user and a responsibility on specific records grants access to these records. We shall be covering these concepts in more detail in the demo. With this, let's go through how we can configure and implement customer access management. As part of the demo, we'll be covering B2C and B2B scenarios across different industry use cases, as you can see on your screen. First up, let's go through some B2C scenarios. The first scenario is in the banking domain where an individual is applying for a home loan. So Kenny Rogers approaches ABC Bank for a loan. The bank initiates a home loan application in the form of a case. Now, apart from Kenny, there are a few other participants required on the case. One, a co-applicant who needs access to the case, for example, Kenny's wife, Susan. And two, a guarantor who doesn't need access to the case, rather just needs to be added for tracking purpose on the application. In this scenario, it will be his uncle, Ernie. First, let's see how an admin can configure this scenario. For that, we have logged in to the platform as a system administrator. The first item to configure is the type of related parties that can be added to cases. In our example, we saw that we are adding two party types. One is a co-applicant and the other is a guarantor. These party types can be configured through the related party configuration screen by the admin, as you can see. Let's quickly just understand the different attributes to a configuration. The name field denotes the name of the relationship or party type, for example, co-applicant. The applies to field denotes the entity on which the related party would be applicable. For our scenario, we are going to be adding these parties on the case entity. The entity type refers to the type of the user who is going to be added as the related party. For example, the user who would be added is a consumer or a B2C customer user. A reference condition is used to filter the users who can be added as related parties. And finally, the default responsibility is the selected responsibility when a new related party is added. These responsibilities, as we discussed previously, determine if the user should get access to the record or should not get access and only be added for tracking. Now let's go ahead and configure the related parties for our scenario. The admin can click on new and start setting up new party types. First, let's set up the co-applicant party type by providing a name to the party. This party applies to the case entity. So we select case. The type of user who would be added as a co-applicant is a consumer in the CSM system. We don't need any reference conditions here. And as this party requires access to the case, we will assign the default responsibility as authorized representative, which is an out-of-the-box responsibility that we ship with the product. We can submit this. Similarly, let's configure the other party type, which was the guarantor. Let's give a name to the party type. And again, this applies to cases as well. A consumer. And in this scenario, the guarantor does not require access to the case once they're added as a related party. So we can choose to leave the default responsibility as blank. Here, we just configured related parties where we gave a name to a relationship, as you saw, a co-applicant and guarantor. And optionally, we also gave a responsibility to denote whether these parties should get access to the record or not. As we might recall, apart from just the responsibility, the users who are added as related parties should also have the appropriate role to get access. For that, let's quickly have a look at the list of roles that need to be granted to the users based on the user type and the entity where they'll be added as related parties. As you can see, we have different roles for the case entity, for the install base, and the sole product entities. In our scenario, we are adding consumers as related parties on the case record. So such users would need the case authorized consumer role assigned to them. Let's ensure that the users in our scenario have this role before we add them as related parties. For that, let's open up the user record. So the admin can open the user records for Susan and Ernie. First, the admin would need to grant the case authorized consumer role to Susan. Let's set that up. As you can see, this is the case authorized consumer role, which we're assigning here to Susan. And let's also give the same role to Ernie. Let's search for the role. Case authorized consumer role. And done. Yeah. Please note that these roles are meant only to provide access for users for scenarios where these users are added as related parties. As a one-time setup, like we saw, an admin can assign these roles to all users or can contain them in other roles without any impact. The users with these roles shall only get access to records where they are added as related parties and also have the responsibility. Now, with this setup completed, let's now go back to our loan application scenario. For that, let's log in as the customer service manager, who is John. So John logs into his workspace. He locates Kenny, who is a consumer in the system. This is a record for Kenny. And let's open up the home loan application case that was initiated for Kenny. Now, as part of this application process, we need to add co-applicants and guarantors to the case. To do so, John can navigate to the related parties section over here and can now start adding the related parties required on the case. So first up, he adds a co-applicant by selecting the party type. This is the same party type that we configured as an admin. And then you select Susan Rogers as the co-applicant on the case. As you can see, a responsibility has been populated by default, which means that Susan Rogers, once added as a related party, should get access to the case. Similarly, let's also add the guarantor to the same case. Going back, we select the party type as guarantor. And in this example, we'll be adding his uncle, Ernie Mahomes, as the guarantor. And as you can see, there is no responsibility assigned because a guarantor does not need access to the case at all and only needs to be added for tracking. And with this, we have set up these two party types. Now, Susan, as an authorized representative and a co-applicant, should be able to access the case on our portal and contribute to it. For that, let's log in as Susan Rogers. So this is the portal view for Susan Rogers. She can navigate to her list of cases. And as you can see, as Susan was added as a related party on this case, she now has access to the case. She can open and view the details of the case and also contribute to it in terms of adding comments. She can add attachments, and she can also perform other actions like closing the case. On the other hand, if you remember, Ernie was added as a related party on the case, but wasn't assigned a responsibility. Due to that, when Ernie does log into his portal and navigates to his list of cases, he won't be seeing the case because he was just added there for tracking rather than for access. As you can see, the home loan application case is not available to Ernie. So in summary, in this scenario, we added two related parties to a B2C case, one with access, which was a co-applicant, and one without access, which was a guarantor. These are the list of steps that we just performed. Let's now look at another B2C example in the insurance domain. Kenny Rogers purchases a life insurance policy, which is a product. He nominates his wife, Susan, as a beneficiary who does not require access to the product and its cases. And he also wants to add his family trust as a beneficiary, again, without access and just for tracking. Now let's see how we can set up this scenario. Going back to the CSM manager, John locates Kenny. Now the life insurance policy that we talked about is modeled as a product and would be available under install base items, as you can see. So this is the life insurance policy. So the manager opens up this policy. He can view the details, and now he can also add the different related parties as beneficiaries to this policy. So first up, the CSM manager clicks on new, and this time we'll be adding a beneficiary as a related party. Similar to the steps we performed earlier, the beneficiary party type has already been configured in the system, and that's why it is available over here for selection. And he can add Susan Rogers as the consumer. Again, no responsibility, denoting that Susan Rogers would not be able to access the product. Similarly, Kenny also wanted a trust to be added as a related party. So over here, we'll select a different type of a beneficiary, which is a trust. And the trust that we'll be adding is the Rogers Family Trust. A trust has been modeled as an account in the CSM system, as you can see, and we'll submit it. Now you can see that we have added two types of beneficiaries over here. One is a consumer or an individual, that is Susan, and the other is a organization, that is a Rogers Family Trust. The trust is added so that the details of this trust and the details of the trustees are available for tracking by agents. So an agent can open up the trust record and view the details of the trust, things like contact details, addresses, and email addresses. And the primary trustee for the Rogers Family Trust is Ernie, who is the uncle of Kenny. So in this scenario, we added different types of related parties to a B2C product, an individual, as well as an account. Similarly, let's take up another B2C example, this time in the telecom domain. Kenny Rogers can subscribe to a mobile plan for his household, and for which he shall be the billing user as the owner of the mobile plan, but he can also add different members of his family, such as Susan Rogers, his wife, and Julius Rogers, his son, as additional users to the plan. Let's go back to John Jason, the customer service manager, in order to set up the scenario. So John navigates to the list of households and opens up the Rogers household over here. A household is basically a set of consumers or family members. You see the Rogers household over here. Kenny Rogers is the head of the household. This household also has other members, as we saw, which include Susan Rogers and Julius Rogers. So this household consists of three different members or consumers. Now, in order, let's now go to the product first, which is the mobile plan. So this mobile plan has been created on the Rogers household. Let's open this up. As you can see over here, we have already set up the related parties on the mobile plan. Kenny Rogers as a primary user has been added as a billing user, and Susan and Julius Rogers as the members of the household, but also users of the same family mobile plan, have been added as additional users. As you can see, we have given the authorized representative responsibility to all of these members so that each one of them would be able to access this mobile plan on their portal and create cases against it. For that, let's log in as Susan first. As an authorized representative on that mobile plan, Susan should be able to access that product. She can do so by going to support and install base. This is where all the products accessible to Susan are available. So she can go to the mobile plan. As you can see, Susan has access to all the existing cases on this product or mobile plan. Additionally, she can also choose to raise a new case. For example, she's facing issues with network and raises a case for network outage. So she raises a case on this mobile plan, as you can see. Now, once she has created this case would be available to all the other related parties on the case. For example, if Kenny Rogers logs into portal and navigates to the same product, which is the mobile plan, you'll be able to see that Kenny has access to all the existing cases and also the new case that was raised by Susan. So as an authorized representative, Kenny can also contribute to a case created by another family member. In this scenario, we added multiple members of a household to a B2C product as authorized representative and seen how these members can view all the existing cases as well as create new cases on the same product. With that, let's have a look at a couple of B2B scenarios. Now, B2B customers are represented as accounts and their employees are represented as contacts in the CSM application. Let's start off with an example in the manufacturing domain. There's a customer account, Boxio Manufacturing, who purchases multiple products, for example, an ERP and a CRM subscription, which are modeled as different sole products. Now, Boxio Manufacturing has various employees or contacts. Emma Jones is the CEO of the organization. Jack Henry is the ERP admin. Tom Goodwin is the CRM admin. And Perry Mason is the procurement head. Now, Jack Henry, being the ERP admin, needs access to only the ERP product and its cases. Similarly, Tom Goodwin is the CRM admin and would only need access to CRM and its cases. Further, Perry Mason is a procurement head and only wants to be kept in the loop for critical cases related to ERP, for which Perry Mason only needs to be added to the priority 1 cases on ERP and not to the other cases which are of lower priority. Now let's set up this scenario and see it in action. First, let's log into the system as an administrator to set up the scenario. So this is the admin view. First, the admin would need to configure the party type for our scenario. As we saw, we have 2 types of admins that need to be added on the products. One is an ERP admin and one is a CRM admin. For that, we have created a party type of admin in order to add these employees on the products. Also, the users who are going to be added as related parties, as we discussed earlier, would also need the required roles. Now, the roles in this scenario are going to be a little different because the type of user is a contact. So Jack Henry would need a sole product authorized contact role in this scenario because he's going to be added as a related party on a sole product. Similarly, Tom Goodwin would also require the same role. For Perry Mason, who only wants to get access to cases and not to the product itself, he would require a case authorized contact role, denoting that Perry Mason would be added to cases as a contact. With that, now let's go and set up the scenario. Let's go to John Jason, who is the customer service manager. As this is a B2B scenario, Boxio Manufacturing is modeled as an account and would be visible over here. As you can see, this is the account. These are the account details and the employees are modeled as contacts. So these are the contacts that we have already added for this account. Similarly, over here, you can see the different products that have been purchased by this account. One is the ERP product. The other is the CRM product. For our scenario, the ERP product should be visible to Jack Henry. So we have already added Jack Henry as a related party on this product. We have given him the admin party type and responsibility, which should allow Henry to access this product on his portal and create cases. Similarly, on the CRM product, we shall add Tom Goodwin as an admin for this product, so he has access to everything related to this product. If you remember, as per our scenario, Perry Mason, who's a procurement head, only wants access to certain cases for the ERP product. So as you can see on the ERP product, there are a couple of cases. Now, Perry Mason is only interested in getting access to and tracking the critical cases. For example, this is a data processing error case, which is critical. Let's open that up. In order to give Perry Mason access to this particular case, we will need to add him as a related party. So we navigate to related parties and we start adding Perry Mason. For this scenario, we'll be using an out-of-the-box responsibility that comes with the product, which is an authorized contact. And we'll be selecting Perry Mason. And as you can see, a responsibility has been assigned so that Perry Mason gets access to this product. We click on save, and now we have added Perry as a related party to this particular case. Now, when Perry logs into his portal, as you can see over here, and navigates to his list of cases, he shall be able to now see and get access to the case and be able to track and contribute to it in terms of comments. So in this scenario, we have seen 2 levels of granularity. One, we saw how an employee can be added as a related party to a product, which gives them access to the product and all the cases for that product. And 2, we saw how other employees can be given granular access to certain cases. For example, Perry Mason was only granted access to certain critical cases for the ERP product. With that, let's look at another B2B example, this time in the healthcare medical devices domain. Boxio Hospital, which is an account, purchases an X-ray machine. There are different types of staff members of the hospital who would want access to this machine and be able to create cases. For example, Emily Jackson is a radiologist who wants access and be able to create cases. And we also have an engineer from the CMS department, Sean Miller, who would want a similar level of access. Let's look at this scenario in action and go back to John, the customer service manager. This time he locates Boxio Hospital account over here. The product that this hospital has purchased, which is a sole product, is the X-ray machine. And again, related parties can be added to this product through the related party screen. And we have already added the 2 hospital employees over here, Emily Jackson, the party type of radiologist, and Sean Miller, which is a CMMS engineer. So in this scenario, we saw that different types of staff members can be added to a B2B sole product or a product that is purchased by an organization, and they can each view and raise cases on the same product. Finally, this is a snapshot of the out-of-the-box entities supported for related parties. We did see these in our different scenarios. So you can add related parties on cases, specific cases, or on products, which can be either install-based items or sold products. Along with that, these are the different types of parties that can be added to these entities. For example, you can add a contact, which is a B2B customer, to a case, and you can also add a consumer, which is a B2C customer. These are the responsibilities that we ship by default, which is the authorized representative responsibility. And as we also saw that apart from the responsibility, the users also need the role that drives access. So the different roles required for these different parties have been mapped over here and can be seen in this column. With that, I'll hand it over to Krupa to talk about next steps.
Thank you, Pratik. This is, amazing. How much you can do with just a few clicks here without writing code, without setting up a whole level of complex access, and how easily you can give access and then change it when needed. Thank you. And great scenarios, multiple industries, multiple use cases. These are examples we see in our everyday life. So thank you for bringing it, making it tangible to everyone here on the call. So for our attendees, so what can you do? What are the next steps for you to learn more about this? First of all, this capability is available in CSM standard. So it's there in your instances. So go try it out. Create your own relationship types, create these new ones, assign your responsibilities, add the roles, test it, try it, see how it works for related parties for cases, so products, install base. Now, to find more information, we have a couple of links here for our product documentation on what are the tables, what are the plugins, how do you use customer access management. And we'd love to hear your feedback, your use cases, and other information on this topic. So thank you once again for joining the session, and thank you, Pratik, for a very cool and exciting demo kit.